Hi. So you know what I haven't done in a long time? I just haven't done a good old-fashioned story time video. A lot of you guys have reached out to me in my DMs regarding my recent colonoscopy, why I had a colonoscopy, what the colonoscopy was like, what the prep was like, what happened after, and I figured I would sit down and give you guys a good old-fashioned story time. So grab a snack, grab a drink, and let me tell you guys about my first ever colonoscopy. Okay, so I guess kind of don't know where to begin because I'm going to be so open and honest about bowel movements and my GI trek. So this is a video that you don't want to have TMI on. By all means, please click off. I will not be offended. But a lot of people out there did reach out to want to know my story as to why someone at the age of 36 had to go get a colonoscopy done. And I will say I'm beyond grateful that I got one done because it literally ended up saving my life. But we will get into that. So for years and years, I've always suffered from stomach issues. I always had irregular bowel movements. I was always really bloaty and gassy. I always had like a lot of pain in my lower right hand or my lower left hand side. And I kind of just chalked it up to, okay, you know what? I'm lactose intolerant, and maybe it's just because I'm having dairy. That's why I'm having like this inconsistent bowel movement. Not really sure. Let me just kind of test this out. And I've been like having like stomach issues, I want to say, since kind of like I was a child, mostly when I consumed dairy. But then as I got older, it kind of just switched from dairy to just food as a whole. If I really consumed any sort of like if any sort of processed food or greasy, fatty food, anything greasy, I noticed I'd have a lot of stomach issues. So over the years, you know, I watched my mom, who does have diverticulitis, kind of suffer from some stomach issues, and IBS does run my family. And over the years, as I was getting older, I was like, man, anytime I eat food, like I hurt, like I start to get pretty bloated. I get really gassy. Like you could hear the gas kind of moving through my bowels. And I was like, my stomach always hurts. And I didn't really understand why. And I thought, it's just the facts I'm getting older, right? But ultimately, I was like, okay, maybe there's something more. For a long time, I didn't have health insurance. I couldn't afford health insurance, and health insurance is still really expensive. But for a long time, I didn't have health insurance up until I was about 34 years old. I finally got my first health insurance, and unfortunately, I got a really shitty one. So for the first year of having that, I wasn't able to go see a GI specialist because there just really wasn't any in my network that would actually see me. So I ended up canceling that insurance, and I got the one that I have now. And I went for the first time to go get my lady bitch checked out in a very long time. That came back out perfect. But I would have these episodes where I would consume something at work or I would consume something at home, and I would just be hurting. I'd be like having very, very like bloated. I would have like my stomach would protrude. It would be bloated. You would hear the gas moving around, and I would have bouts where I'm in and out of the bathroom for several hours, and it just became very inconsistent. I would never be one of those people that just had consistent bowel movements. One day it would be like diarrhea, the next it'd be solid. It was just very, very, very inconsistent. And I was just like, I don't really know how healthy this is. And so I remember when I looked at my symptoms, a lot of my symptoms presented itself as IBS. And I said, okay, maybe I have IBS. IBS runs in my family. 1,000% it runs in my family. But my mom also has diverticulitis, and she didn't discover that until she's like in her 40s. So I was like, maybe I need to go get checked. I've been seeing all these signs all over TikTok. Everybody's saying, oh, I have colon cancer, I have this, I was like, what if I have something? What if I have something? So I was really scared because like, I don't know. It's just one of those things that people just feel so weird talking about bowel movements and like the shape of your poop and diarrhea and all that type of stuff. People just don't want to talk about it. But, I had my friends down here in town, and we were going to Disney, and I just kind of expressed to my friends about just my stomach issues, and they kind of explained their own. And I was just like, maybe we really should just get seen. Like I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I'm 36 years old. I shouldn't have to be worried about what I'm eating every single day and wondering, is this going to set my stomach off? Like, what is truly contributing to my stomach? After talking to my friends, I was like, okay, I really should go get seen, because like, I don't know, like something inside my head was just constantly telling me like what I'm going through isn't normal. Like, right? Like, I think I have IBS. I'm like 95% sure of IBS just by Googling everything. But like, I want to be safe. I want to be sure, especially since given the fact that my family does have polyps running in there. My family does have polyps that run in our family. They have IBS issues. They have diverticulitis. I was like, I just want to be okay. I'd rather have a clear diagnosis of what is wrong with my stomach than not know. What can I have? What can I not have? I put myself on a whole food diet. That worked for a tiny bit before it first stopped working. And then I went on a low FOD diet. For those who do have IBS, you guys probably know what I'm talking about. Just eating a certain type of food that's perfect for IBS. That worked for a while. I started implementing more fiber into my diet, but then that started to cause a backtrack in my GI system, and I started to get like backed up, and it just became this whole big like, what am I doing? What am I not doing? I should probably go talk to someone who's a specialist in this field. So I decided to make an appointment, and this is my first time ever going to a GI specialist. And I showed up to the office, and I remember sitting in the waiting room, and like I'm looking around, and a lot of people there are like older than me, and I'm by myself because Corey had to work, and I was just like, okay, let's go meet with the GI specialist. So I met with my doctor, and I kind of just started going over all my symptoms, the symptoms that I've had for years. And they seemed really concerned with the inconsistent bowel movements. They seemed really concerned about that. And I was like, is that something you should be concerning? They said, yes, it should be, because you shouldn't be having, inconsistent bowel movements. You shouldn't be constantly 1 week having complete diarrhea to the next just having straight up just solid bowel movements. That's not really normal. Like, we should kind of get down to the root of the cause. And I was like, well, I think it's probably IBS. She said, I will not rule it as IBS until we literally go through everything to make sure that you are completely okay. She's like, I'm seeing more and more young people come in here and getting diagnosed with colon cancer at a very early age because of the food that we grew up on and the chemicals that's in our food. And she's like, I think we need to get you a colonoscopy. And I remember the first time she said that to me, I was just like, okay, so we have to do a colonoscopy. She's like, yes. And so she's like, I do want to go ahead and send you off for some blood work. I want to test you for celiac. I want to test you for some allergies. I want to test you for a couple of things. So I left that day. I left that appointment. I went to Quest Diagnostics. I got my blood work done. Everything came back negative. So we scheduled my appointment for November 24th. And unfortunately for me, I guess fortunately, I got a call about 2 or 3 days prior to my appointment that my insurance was not accepted at the facilities that they sent me to. So they would have to reschedule my colonoscopy. At that point, I got pretty upset because I had mentally prepared myself, and I had mentally just as like, okay, I've never done this before. I've never in my entire life been under anesthesia. And now granted, I know you guys said, oh, yours Twilight and it's anesthesia. No, it's propofol. I was legit put under. They put a little oxygen in me. It was propofol I was put under, but I'll get to that in a little bit. I've never done anything that. I've never been anything under any procedure ever in my life. The most I've ever done is a tooth extraction. I've never done anything else, right? So this was very nerve-wracking for me. I've never done anything like this. So they ended up canceling my appointment, and they're moving it to December 18th. And I remember being incredibly nervous because they had prescribed me the soup preparation, which is going to be it's going to be 2 bottles of 6-ounce soup prep that you're supposed to pour into a cup with 10 ounces of water. You're supposed to consume that within an hour, followed by 30 ounces of water after that. And my time was at 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. I have 4 laxative pills before starting soup prep. So I had done my research. I had gone all over the internet. Yes, I went on TikTok, and I had looked up the soup prep kit, what to expect. And everybody on the internet was saying it's the most vile, disgusting thing. It was just absolutely horrible. Like, find a different alternative. And I was just like, I'm fucked. Because oh my God, how am I going to drink this liquid that everybody says it's comes from the pits of hell? Like, how am I supposed to consume this? I got really, really, really in my head, and I got really nervous. So if you guys don't know, I suffer from really horrible anxiety. And whenever I have really bad anxiety, it really triggers some flare-ups in my stomach. So I was kind of like a mess for 2 weeks leading up to my procedure. I was having really rough bowel movements because I was just an anxious mess, and I was just not really sure what to expect. So I did talk to my doctor several times because I was low-key kind of freaking out, and they ended up prescribing me Zofran because I was so scared that I wasn't going to be able to keep the prep down. So they gave me Zofran, which, let me tell you, miracle. And then they ended up just saying, listen, we could give you the other one, like the pill one, but I said I don't do pills because I really don't. I struggle with pills, and they're like these freaking horse pills. You're supposed to take 24 of them in an hour. There's just no way. And then he also talked about another one that's like a lemonade flavor, but he said that one also requires you to consume more liquid. He gave me the liquid. He gave me the prep that has the least amount of consumption. So he also told me I had to go on a very strict diet 5 days prior to my colonoscopy to make the prep very, very easy. So the diet consisted of very, 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 very low fiber diet. I mean, you wanted to pretty much just have eggs, crackers, applesauce, Jello, mashed potatoes. You wanted to have nothing, like if you consumed any fruit, it cannot have anything with a skin on it. You can't have any vegetables that have a skin on it. You had to have just plain chicken, plain salmon, no processed meat, no red meats. I mean, like a very, very strict low fiber diet for 5 days prior, because you really wanted to make sure that you had your bowels as empty as possible to make the prep as easy as possible. And let me tell you, that was probably one of the best things I ever could have done, because it truly did make the prep process very different compared to what I've seen online. And then talking to my other friends who've also had this procedure done, there's a vast difference. So I went on a very, very strict low fiber diet 5 days prior to my colonoscopy, and I was starving. Like, I'm gonna tell you guys right now, I was absolutely starving, because I mean, there's only so much of plain noodles that I can consume, plain white rice that I consume, plain applesauce or mashed potatoes or bland chicken with like no seasoning. There's only so much that you can consume before you're just like, I can't eat this anymore. Like, this is disgusting. I don't want this anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, it got very, very difficult to do. And by Monday, by Tuesday, my last day of being able to eat anything, I was hungry, I had a headache, and I was just kind of getting nervous. So come Wednesday, the 17th, the day of my prep, you weren't allowed to consume anything. You were only allowed to have black tea, black coffee, either Sprite, ginger ale. You could have like green or yellow colored Gatorade or sports energy drink. You can have apple juice. You can have white grape juice. You can have clear broth only. Like, you had to go on a very, very clear liquid diet. And I had to work that diet, mind you. Like, I had to go to work, and I know I could have requested off, but I genuinely asked to go to work because I just did not want to have any sort of like be by myself situation, because I already was like in a headspace, right? So I went to work, and my coworkers were amazing. They brought me clear broth soup to consume at work, and I don't think I ever felt hunger like I did in that moment, because, you know, unfortunately, I'm working in an office and people are allowed to eat their food around me, and they were, and I was starving, and I would consume my hot, clear broth as best as possible. And it did help to satiate the hunger just a little bit. It did help to curb it. I ended up getting a pounding headache, which I did call my doctor, and he did say I can take Advil. So that was really wonderful. And I knew I had to leave work by 1:30 because I had to start my prep by 2. So I got all my supplies ready, and I got I had my little jelly, gummy bears, which were only the yellow and green and white ones only, as a little something to chew on. I had all my stuff ready, and I went home, and I had to take at 2 o'clock 4 Duralex pills, which is like going to be a laxative, right? So I took 4 pills at 2 o'clock. And I walked my dogs, I fed my dogs, I came back home, and besties, let me tell you, by like 4:15, 4:30, okay, y'all, I felt my stomach rumble, and I was like, oh, okay, my stomach's rumbling. I went to the bathroom, and that was probably the loudest bowel movement I have ever had in my entire life. I mean, I didn't think it was possible for those noises to come out of my body. And I was like, oh my God. It was like I was just expelling everything out of my system. And I was like, okay, so is this what this is going to be like? Is this what I'm to expect when I actually start the prep? When I start the prep at 5 o'clock with the soup prep, which is like the prescribed laxative, is this what I'm to expect? You know what I mean? So I went around like 4:15, 4:30, and then I had to go again maybe like 10 minutes later. And again, I just expelled everything. And I was just like, okay, alrighty, here we go. So I was like, all right, and honestly, I felt better. And a lot of people, warned me ahead of time, hey, just, the worst part of the prep is you're going to be going to the bathroom all the time. And I was just like, what else is new? What else is new? I'm clearly getting a colonoscopy for a reason, because I already have inconsistent bowel movements, and I'm constantly going to the bathroom, and I don't think that's the most healthiest thing to do. So yeah, me having to shit, nothing new. Nothing new. The only thing I didn't want is I didn't want the pain. So literally, I talked to my doctor ahead of time, and I said, hey, how am I going to get the soup prep down? I heard it's like tasting the pits of hell. What am I going to do? And my doctor's like, listen, you're supposed to mix 10 ounces of water. He goes, fuck that. Put some water in it, yes, but I don't care. Put ginger ale in it. Put white grape juice in it. Put something in it to help get it down. He goes, I need you to get it down. So whatever you can do to get it down, get it down. And I said, roger that. So I fill up my soup prep into that little clear container, the 6 ounces, and then I do pour probably like half, instead of 10 ounces, I probably did like 6 or 7 ounces of water. And then I topped it up to the 16-ounce fill line with ginger ale. And then I also saw online that someone took a little bit of the Country Time lemonade packs and they put it into the drink. And I was like, okay, let me try this. So I put the Country Time lemonade, I stirred it all up, and I was like, bottoms up. Now, here's the key. I put mine in the refrigerator probably 3 weeks prior to my prep because they said that if you have it ice cold, it's a lot easier to get down. And if you also drink it through a straw, it's a lot easier to get down. So I had mine completely ice cold. I had it ready and I was like, okay, here we go. Let me do this. I took my first sip and I was like, oh, well, is exactly what I did, because going in, I would say it tastes like, I don't know, it has like a berry taste, like a berry, like you're either drinking, I don't want to say like Robitussin. A lot of people online said Robitussin or cough syrup. A little bit, it kind of tasted like a Starburst, like a pink Starburst or like a cherry Starburst going down. But it was the aftertaste, okay? It was the aftertaste that was absolutely horrendous. It was so unbelievably salty. I mean, like, you're talking about taking straight up ocean water, dropping some cherry flavor, berry flavor into said ocean water and being told to consume. All right, it was a moment. And I was like, oh dear God, how am I going to get through this? Okay. Like, how am I going to get through this? So I was like, I got to do it. I have to do it somehow because I'm not about to go through all this I just went through to fill my prep. So I literally just sat there and I started to drink it. And I would not do like this chugging. People said chug it. There's no way I can chug it. But as I started to consume it, I did feel really nauseous. And I said, oop, let me go ahead and take a Zofran. So I put the Zofran under my tongue. It dissolved. Immediately took away my nausea within like 5 minutes, which was amazing. True lifesaver. You guys should definitely ask for it if you guys are doing colonoscopy prep. True a lifesaver. So I started to consume the prep and I'm realizing that this was going to be really difficult to do because it's a bad taste. It's a bad taste. But then I was like, you know what? I need to chase it with something. So I started to take my drink. I would start to consume it and I drank it through a straw and I chug it. Right after I put it in my mouth, I literally would chase it with ginger ale. Let me tell you, that was a game changer. Chasing it with ginger ale was a true game changer because you put that drink in your mouth and you just have that nasty saltiness and you immediately chase it with ginger ale, which will cut that taste by like 90%. I found that became a very easy method to do. So I would sit there and I put my drink on the stand. I'm just gonna use this sample. I'd plug my nose and I go and quickly chug ginger ale. And that made it so easy to get it down. So if you guys are really nervous about the soup prep, listen, I'm all about, like, I can't do horrible taste. But literally chasing it with ginger ale and also having it mixed with ginger ale in the Country Time, game changer. Game changer. It made the prep extremely easy. And I was like, okay, I can generally do this. By me doing with the ginger ale, it helps. Now I also learned that when I plug my nose, I would exhale as I was sucking up the liquid. And then I would hold my breath, chase it with ginger ale, and then I'd for some reason that became the method and it worked. Now granted, it took me an hour and a half to get through this, but probably within like 10 to 15 minutes of consuming the soup prep, y'all, I was already like, 10, 15 minutes when taking soup prep, I already had to go to the bathroom. And I was like, okay, so it begins. And probably another 2 or 3 sips later, I had to go again. And by that point, I was already shitting just yellow urine is what it looked like. Just yellow urine. There was nothing solid, nothing in there, just straight up looked like urine coming out of my butt. And I was like, all right, they said they're supposed to be completely clear. It's supposed to be just like water coming out of you. I feel like I'm kind of close, but I still had a whole soup prep to consume. So within that hour and a half of me consuming that soup prep, I probably gone to the bathroom like 40 times. And when I tell you, I had seconds. I mean, I had mere seconds to get to the toilet. I've never in my life felt like that. It didn't hurt by any means, but it was just like, boop, 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 like knocking on my back door. And I had seconds to get there before my muscles were like, don't care. I was just like, this is insane. I've always been able to hold myself, right? I've always been able to hold it, but like there was no holding that. Like there was just literally no holding it. And they said to get Destin, they said to get Vaseline wipes, they said to do baby wipes. Y'all, I did all of that. And butthole was still on fire. Okay, it was still on fire. It was so raw. It was horrible. But what also did not help is that I had been starving all day prior to this. But by consuming the soup prep at the same time as I'm doing this, I got so bloated. I got so full, and I was just like, how am I going to get this down when I can't even take another sip without going, ugh. Like, I just felt so bloated. And then I'd have a bowel movement, and then I'd have more space to consume it. So like I said, it took me an hour and a half to get it down. And afterwards, you have to chug 30 ounces of water. Now, that was a little bit more of the easier part, to chug the water. But let me tell you, like I said, I went about 40 times during that time. And my husband called because he's on his way home from work. I told him that he needed to stop and get some clear broth and some ginger ale, to which he did. Now, here's the thing. I had to sit in my bedroom because my bedroom was the closest thing to the bathroom, and it allowed me to just kind of be comfortable. And I've been with my husband for 17 years. Okay, we've been together since I was 18, and never in our relationship, 17 years together, have I ever had any sort of bowel movement in front of him. Just isn't a thing. Okay, we know we've been married for so long, we've been together for so long. I'm still that person. When I have bowel movement, I will go into the bathroom, I will shut the door, I will turn the fan on, I'll turn the water on, and I will blast TikTok, because God forbid, you know, I'm doing a dookie, okay? You just, that's just a private time for me. So my husband, he's on his way home, and I said, listen, I can't be more than a two or 3 feet from this bathroom, okay? And when it comes, I have to go. Like, I do not have a choice. I have to go. He's like, no big deal. And he's like, I just want to come home. I want to hang out with you. I want to take a shower. I want to eat. And I was like, okay, but like, you could take a shower in the guest bathroom, right? He's like, no, I'll just use ours. And I was just like, the fuck you are? And he's like, what? I said, Corey, you don't understand. I literally have seconds to get to the bathroom. This is one of those situations where, like, we could be separate. Like, I literally have seconds to get to the bathroom. So like, you trying to hang out in the room, like, I don't even have time to shut the door. And he's like, babe, I don't care. And I was like, I care. But by that point, I was already it was just water. At that point, it was just pure water coming out of me. And my husband was just very adamant that he wanted to be there for me. He was just very much like, I don't care in sickness and health. He goes, you're my wife. I love you. If you need me, I want to be here for you. So we shared an experience. He took a shower, and I probably used the bathroom like 10 times him using the shower. And he just said, sounds like you're peeing. I said, I am, just not out of the right place. You think so? You know what I mean? But at that point, it's just water coming out. There really wasn't anything disgusting about it. I wasn't making any noises. It just sounded like water. I would say that by the time my bowel movement stopped, it was probably around 7:30, 8 o'clock. Mind you, I started my prep at 5. I finally stopped having bowel movement around 7:30, 8 o'clock. And I looked at my husband and was like, okay, no more bowel movements. I think we should be good, but I have another prep starting at 10. And at that point, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, because I was getting hungry. So I was getting hungry again. I heated up a soup, but I still just kind of had a little, I think I'm going to have to go again. I consumed my little clear broth, and I started the bowel process all over again. Now, I will say, people say the second time is harder to get down. I definitely found the second time harder to get down, because you kind of already know what to expect, you know what to taste. But I did find it to be a little bit easier since I already had a system in place. Instead of it taking an hour and a half, this time it took an hour and 15 minutes. Woo! I shaved out 15 minutes. There was no way I was going to be able to consume it within an hour. And literally within the first 2 sips of me consuming the second round of soup prep at 10 o'clock, I was already in the toilet. And it took me an hour and 15 minutes to get that down. And again, I had gone so many times. Like, I would grab the soup prep with me and just go to the toilet, and I'd sit there and I'd just drink my soup prep, do the ginger ale shot, and then wait 2 seconds. Boop, there we go. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's how fast it was moving through me at this point. At that point, it literally was just clear liquid. There was literally nothing more coming out of me, but I knew I had to finish the prep. The hardest part after that truly was trying to consume the 30 ounces of water. I had no desire to have water. Like, I was just like, I'm getting exhausted. I was getting exhausted. I had a headache. I was hungry, and now you have to consume 30 ounces of water after just having this horrendous drink right before, and it became a little bit more difficult to get the water down. It also did not help that, like I said, I was just in and out of the bathroom the whole time. My butt was just on fire. The Destin helped, but then it didn't help because, like, I still had to keep going, and even though I'm just producing water, I still wanted to wipe myself with baby wipes, and it just was a process. I will say by the time that I stopped having a bowel movement, it was probably around 2 to 2:30 in the morning when I finally can go a while without going to the bathroom. And I made my husband sleep in a different room because I wanted him to sleep. He was exhausted. He worked all day at the bar at Disney, and I just wanted him to sleep. One of us had to sleep because we had to be up at 5:45 to go to my procedure. So I look at the clock, it said 2:30, and I was like, okay. I literally laid at the corner of my bed, and I laid there, and last time I looked at the clock, it said 3:30 because I was so scared that like if I farted, I would just shit the bed. If I farted, I would just piss the bed. I was so terrified of that. So I just laid there for so long, and I probably had only an hour and a half of sleep before the alarm went off and I had to get up. Now, when I got up in the morning, an hour and a half later, I was able to go 2 or 3 more times where it was just, again, just clear liquid coming out of me. We fed the dogs, we walked the dogs, and then we headed off towards my procedure. Now, mind you, like I said, I've never done anything like this before, so this was definitely a first for me. We walk into the surgery center, and, I check myself in. My husband's there with me. I pay my copay. I fill out the information they need to be filled out, and they immediately called me back, and I was like, oh, okay. So they're like, okay, you have to wait here for her. You can't leave. And so they call me back. And the first thing they do is they weigh me, and then they go, okay, we're going to go ahead and put you into your gown. You can keep your sweater on. So I was wearing a sweater. You can keep your top on, but everything, from the bottom down, you have to take completely off. I said, okay, cool. They said, we also need you to pee into a cup. I said, why? They go, well, you had to do a pregnancy test. And I was like, yay. I was like, I don't think I could produce anything for you. She's like, well, can you try? I said, ma'am, I haven't consumed liquid since like 1 o'clock in the morning because you couldn't have liquid, I think like 4 or 5 hours prior to procedure. So I was like, I don't know if I can go. She's like, just try. So I was like, okay. Take my cup, go in the bathroom. I produce the tiniest bit of liquid possible, and I change into my outfit, and I walk out, and she's there. She's like, did you leave the cup in the bathroom? I said, I did. She's like, okay, now I have to walk you to your bed. Now, mind you, I'm wearing a hospital gown that opens in the back. I had to walk from the bathroom all the way through this hallway, all the way down another hallway full of beds and people laying in it, to my own bed at the very end on the right hand side. I was like, I feel like we're in the episode of Game of Thrones. She's like, why? I was like, because I've never I was like, this feels so violating. Like I'm naked from the bottom down. I can feel a breeze happening between my cheeks. I was like, this is like, I don't know. It feels like you're about to be behind me going, shame. Shame. Like, if you want to do that, by all means. And she laughed, and she's like, this is your first time? I said, this is my first time doing anything. She's like, okay. So she puts me into my bed. She takes the curtain between me and the empty bed next to me. She, slides it around. And so she starts asking me all these questions, the history of my family, if there's been any, colon cancer in my family, if they ever had any heart issues. And we start going over all these like medical health questions, and I was just like, because they asked if, any of my family ever had any heart issues. I said, yeah, my dad had a heart attack and had to have an open heart surgery a couple years ago. He had a bypass. She's like, ooh. I was like, is that concerning? She's like, well, it could be. And I was like, well, why? She's like, well, just in case. I said, okay, because like, should I be concerned? She's like, no. So she goes and takes my blood pressure. Everything's fine. And then she's like, all right, we're gonna go ahead and put the IV into your hand. And she's like, we're gonna put this right here into this vein right here. And I was like, okay. She's like, doesn't hurt a bit. And I was like, bet. Just laying here on the pillow, just laying here on the bed. She put a warm blanket on me. She starts fiddle farting with my hand, okay? And she's like, oh, hold on, you have such a bony hand. And I was like, oh, okay. So she sticks the needle in, and I think the first words on my mouth were, fuck, that hurt. She's like, I'm so sorry. I was like, you lied. You said this doesn't hurt. She's like, well, you do have a bony hand. But she did it in a way that's very nice. It wasn't condescending, I promise. But she did make me laugh because, I do have a bony hand. So, she put it right into this little vein right here. She had, kind of, jiggle it around. I was just like, ma'am, hurry up. So she puts it in. She said that there's 2. She puts it in. She's like, all right, you're all set. She's like, there's 2 people ahead of you getting the procedure, and then it's going to be your turn. I said, okay, cool. So she's like, just lay here, relax. And mind you, just lay here and relax, and then we'll come get you as soon as you're ready. I said, okay. I asked if I could have my phone on me. She said no. And I was like, all right. So I just had to lay in this bed. Okay. So I just had to lay in this bed. And the last I checked the clock on her computer, it was 8:30. My procedure's at 9. And next thing I know, there is a person across from me, and I could just hear them just passing gas. And I was like, oh my God, this is wild, right? They're just letting it rip. And I was just like, all right, there's no one here for me to talk to. And they're just letting it rip. They're just letting it rip. And every time she let it rip, she goes, ooh, she'd make this noise. And I'm just like, this is so weird. Can I can I get like headphones? Like I was already just like, this is just a weird experience. So here comes this gentleman, this older gentleman, and he gets put into the bed directly across from me. And I only know this because they had moved my curtain back to give me some more warm blankets to check on me to make sure I was doing okay. And then to put the little machine, that's like the little call button on my chest if I need anything. So I saw this old man get put into bed directly across from me. And my curtain gets shut. And as I go to shut his curtain, he goes, no, don't shut the curtain. And I was just like, oh God, because then I get flashbacks. So if you guys have ever been on my channel, I told a story a couple years ago how I thought I was having a heart attack and it turned out to just be gas trapped behind my heart. But I went to the emergency room and people were getting sick, and I have etymophobia. I cannot be around people throwing up. It freaks me out, okay? Like I have fight or flight, I would run out of there. So this guy starts saying no. I thought, oh God, I'm stuck and I have nothing to plug my ears. Oh God, go watch that story because it's a horrendous story. I'll have a link down below. But he starts screaming, no, don't shut the curtain. And they're like, okay, sir, is everything okay? He goes, I'm going to have a panic attack. I'm going to have a panic attack. You cannot shut the curtain. And I was just like laying there going, oh my God, should I be worried? And they're like, sir, are you okay? He goes, I have really bad claustrophobia. I have really bad claustrophobia. You cannot close the curtain. I said, okay, sir, no worries. They're like, when's the last time you had this procedure done? He goes, I had it done 15 years ago. But I feel like I'm gonna have a panic attack. They said, okay, did you take your medication, like your anxiety medication? He said, no, I did not. They said, why? He goes, well, I wasn't told that I could. They're like, we gave you very clear instructions that you can absolutely take any sort of medication you need, even the day of. He's like, nope, I haven't taken my anxiety medication in 2 days. They're like, okay. So they go, all right, sir, let's go ahead and take your blood pressure. And I'm laying there. There's literally nothing else for me to do. So I have to listen to this conversation because there's nothing for me to look at. So they take his blood pressure and he was 200 over whatever the bottom number was. I don't know what the bottom number was. And when they started over this, they're like, oh my God, sir. They said, holy crap, we need to get you to calm down immediately. And he goes, I know. I told you I'm freaking out. I'm having a panic attack. They said, yeah, we need to go get the doctor right now. So they get the doctor comes out and starts talking to him. Mind you, his doctor, I believe, is also my doctor because I heard his name. And he started talking to him, trying to calm him down, being like, listen, sir, like you are going to be okay. You know, this is a very easy procedure. Now, he was doing both the endoscopic and the colonoscopy at the same time. So I kind of understand why he's freaking out. But they're like, we just need you to calm down. He's like, yeah, you're right. I just need to calm down. I just need to leave the curtains open. Just leave the curtains open. And they started doing some breathing exercise with him. It sounded like he was like in the applause class, or whatever that's what you're gonna call it. Like he was doing really deep yoga exercises, just like in the breathing. And he probably did that for probably about like 5 to 10 minutes before they came back and checked his blood pressure again. And at that point, it was still 160 over whatever. So they still were not where they needed to be. They said, sir, we cannot even put an IV into your hand until we can get your blood pressure under 140. Your blood pressure is still too high for us to be comfortable with this. We need you to calm down. Is there anyone we can do? Could we bring your wife back here with you? He's like, that's not my wife, it's just my friend. He goes, okay, we just need you to calm down. He said, yeah, I know. I'm just gonna have a panic attack. So they come back maybe like 10 minutes after that and they do his blood pressure. Again, mind you, I have nothing else to do but to listen to this, right? I'm exhausted. I'm trying to fall asleep because at this point I'm like just staring at the ceiling going, oh my God, this old man's having a panic attack. And now he's gonna low-key send me kind of panicking a little bit because like, I don't know, you're panicking. Now should I be worried? You know what I mean? So they come back, they check his blood pressure again, and this time I read 140. And they said, okay, we're definitely getting it to where we need to be. And he goes, I feel like I'm gonna have a panic attack. He goes, I feel like I'm gonna have a panic attack. I don't know if I can do this. And so they brought the doctor out once more, and the doctor said, listen, I would be happy to give you liquid diazepam. It's just like the same exact medicine you already take, but a liquid version. It would really help to calm you down, get you settled. That way we can go ahead and do this procedure for you because I'd hate the fact that you did the entire prep for you not to go through this. And my guy said, you know what? I'm going home. And he's like, what? He's like, I'm going home. I can't do this. I'm gonna have a panic attack. I don't want to do this. I'm being forced to. I gotta go. So they let him go. And I listened to him freak out. You know, they helped him to get dressed. And then after he got taken out, the nurses came in and checked with me. And I was just like, oh, that one is experience. And she said, yeah, I know. And I was like, she's like, are you okay? I was like, I'm a little nervous. Now I'm a little nervous. She's like, don't be, it's gonna be such an easy procedure. And I said, I get that, but like now I'm also just kind of nervous because I have literally no one to talk to, no one to distract my brain, and now I'm listening to this guy panic. So right after he left, a woman gets put next to me, and she's having an endoscopic surgery because they're explaining to her about the procedure. She's like, yeah, I have these all the time. I have stomach ulcers. It's 5 minutes in and out, whatever. So at this point, I have been laying there for quite some time. I'm listening to her talk to the nurse about Christmas, what her Christmas gifts are going to be, what she got the kids. And so thank God for this woman in the bed next to me, because she was just talking to anybody. She's talking to the nurses that were taking her vitals. She was getting everything set up. Then the person got wheeled into a bed next to her. So she started talking to the person next to her, asking what they were having done. And so I was finding comfort listening to these two ladies have a conversation about Christmas and Christmas gift and their plans and having this procedure done before. This is nothing. And I was just like, okay, if I could go back and thank them, I would absolutely thank them, because they literally got me to calm down. So next thing I know, I'm listening to the conversation. My curtain flies open, and it's two nurses, and they introduce themselves to me, saying they're going to take me back to my procedure. So I was like, okay, cool. And I go to stand up by the bed. They said, oh, whoa, where are you going? I said, oh, I'm going to walk to the procedure. She's like, oh no, honey, you're staying right here in this bed. I'm like, what do you mean I'm staying here in this bed? She's like, oh, we're going to take you. And so she started to unlock the bed and starts to wheel it. And I said, I'm being wheeled in this bed? She's like, yeah, you are. And I was like, oh God. So, they wheel me out. And I'm like, mind you, I'm the furthest bed from this area. So I get to see everybody laying in bed. Some have the curtains closed. Others just have it wide open. And I actually get to see the extent of how big the facility is. And how I can see a lot more people, actually a lot more beds just laying there. And I can hear some people, farting. And I was just like, so they wheel me out of that room, and I start to get wheeled to the actual procedure room, where I see a door open where I can see the snake-like object that's going to be going up me. And I was just like, is that what's going to go up in me? They said, yeah. I'm like, you didn't tell me that you were putting a whole garden hose up me. She's like, oh, you never had one done before? And I was like, nope. And that looks like a garden hose. She's like, yes, ma'am. And I was like, okay. She's like, you'll be asleep, you'll be fine. So they wheel me into the room, and the first thing that happens is my doctor, shakes my hand and tells me that he's gonna be doing my, the procedure. He kind of explains the procedure to me. They get me set up in the center. While he's trying to explain the procedure and like what he's gonna be looking for and how this is gonna be done, the two nurses have me lay in bed. They're putting nice warm blankets over my feet. They're changing out my blankets from what I had before to warm blankets. They were also asking me, what do I want to eat when I wake up? And I was like, I don't want to have Chipotle. I've been craving Chipotle. They said, okay, bet. Most people don't eat afterwards. I was like, yeah, right. I'm gonna eat. I'm starving. They said, okay. So they're talking to me while my doctor was talking to me. Then a tech comes in, and he kind of says, hey, I need you to kind of move forward. So I need you to kind of scoot up to the bed. So he starts to have me move up on the bed as far up as I can go, while the first nurse is trying to put heart monitors on my chest, on my hand, and then somewhere around here. At the same time, the other nurse is putting like this oxygen mask around me. At the same time, my anesthesiologist is walking in, and he introduced himself to me. So I have literally quite a few people talking to me at one time, and I didn't realize how overstimulating that was going to be. Okay, that was extremely overstimulating. And my anesthesiologist looks at me. He said, hey, have you ever had anesthesia before? And I said, no. He said, has anyone in your family ever had it? I said, yes. Did they react okay? I said, yes, they have. He goes, okay, are you nervous? I said, I'm actually really nervous, and I'm getting kind of overstimulated. At that point, my vet tech was trying to get me to move into this flamingo pose. They're trying to sit here and tell me that this hose that's going in my nose is going to smell like a beach ball or a shower curtain. My surgeon has his back turned, getting everything set up. The other one's rubbing my feet. And I said, I'm getting really overstimulated. And he literally, oh my God, like this man had my heart. He literally said, stop. Everybody stop. And they all looked. He goes, give me a minute with her. He goes, give me a minute with her. Let me talk to her. You guys are overwhelming her. They said, yep. And so they all kind of backed off. He got right in my face, and he looked at me in my face and said, you're going to be okay. He goes, out of everybody in this room, I'm watching you. Nothing's going to happen to you on my watch, okay? I am going to be watching you. And he goes, you see this? These are your heart monitors. I'll be watching the entire time. I'm going to make sure that you're going to stay asleep. You do not have anything to fear. I was like, I've never done propofol. He goes, it's anesthesia. This is what we give you to keep you under. He goes, it's going to be a very light dosage so that whenever we're done with the drip, we're going to wake up and you're going to feel great. And I said, okay. He goes, you're just like going to sleep. And so I was just like, and I think you can tell by that point the heart monitor was probably like this, because I genuinely was nervous. So after he got in my face and kind of calmed me down, he grabbed my hand as the two nurses were asking if I was breathing okay. And I said, yeah, it does kind of smell like a beach ball. And then they're like, okay, we need you to get into the flamingo pose. And I was like, I don't know what that is in the moment. So I had me put my left leg straight, my right leg had turned over, and then I felt the sheets go whoop, and I just felt my ass just hanging out there. And I was like, oh, she's just out. I felt the cool breeze. And he said, okay, I'm gonna start off with putting lidocaine into your IV first. That way it kind of numbs the sensation. Then we're gonna go on the propofol. He said, when I put the propofol in, he goes, it's gonna feel really warm. Then you're gonna taste metallic in your mouth, and then you're gonna feel really dizzy and woozy. And I said, okay. He goes, I'm gonna talk you through it, okay? And I said, okay. You know what I mean? Because I was just like, okay. So he starts with lidocaine and then goes in the propofol, and I immediately felt the warm sensation going through my hand. And then I started to taste that metallic taste, and he goes, how do you feel? And I said, oh, because I remember the room just started to spin heavily, and that's the last thing. That's the last thing. I remember saying, oh, I feel kind of, and that's it. Next thing I know, I'm being woken up, and I remember the person waking me up, I went, and she told me that my first words I said were, I was at Blood Wing Academy. And she was like, what? Because my husband was there, and Corey told me that I said this. I was at Blood Wing Academy. And she's like, you were what? I was like, I was dreaming that I was at Blood Wing Academy. And it's a book that I'm freaking reading, okay? It's this book that I read on Wings of Blood, okay? It's literally what I said. And she's like, oh, you dreamed? And I was like, yeah, I dreamed I was at Blood Wing Academy. She's like, okay. So, I said, how did I do? She said that you did great. And I said, okay. She's like, we got to get you up now. And I said, okay. She's like, okay, before we do anything though, do you want anything to drink or eat? And I was just like, I don't know. And she's like, I do need you to pass gas. And I was like, oh no, I can't do that. She's like, yes, I need you to pass gas. And I remember just feeling like, oh, like it just was like that really intense crampy sensation. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't. She's like, you got to pass some gas. You'll feel so much better. So I remember I let it out, and oh my God, it was so long and so loud, and I profusely apologized, and I kept saying, I'm so sorry. She's like, girl, don't apologize. This is what we need to see. We need to have you do this. So I am just letting it rip, and that shit was so loud. Corey's laughing, and I was just like, I'm so embarrassed. So, she's like, all right, cool. Like, you know, she kind of gave me some time to let pass some gas. She's like, all right, cool. We got to get you up and out of the bed now. And I said, okay, cool. So she's like, we got to get you dressed. I was like, all right. And I've never been dressed by anyone in my life besides my parents when I was a kid. So, I go to reach for Corey, and I go to grab my clothes, and she goes, nope. And she pushes Corey out of the room, shuts the curtain, and she's like, I'm gonna help you dress. I said, oh, he can do it. She's like, no, ma'am, I got you. So she had to help me put on my underwear, how to help me put on my pants, and then how to help me put on my socks and shoes. All the while, I'm still coming off of propofol, and I am exhausted. And I literally, I guess, was saying things that I don't remember saying. And they go to put me in the wheelchair when my surgeon comes in, and he lets me know how the procedure went and said that he found a polyp along with something else regarding my colon, which I'll get to in a minute. And he said everything else looks great. I guess I said several times it's a cancer. He said no. And then I asked several times about my colon, and he said that everything looked amazing, like in terms of like the cleanliness and stuff like that. He shook my hand. He said that he'll be in contact soon with the biopsy results and stuff like that. And Corey said that the whole time I was out of it. Like, he said that I was doing like this weird thing with my hand as I was like talking, and like just doing like this weird, just my hand, I was doing this. And I was asking again, I probably asked the doctor about the polyp that he found several times. And I think I said several times, so did I save my life by coming in? But it sounded like I was drunk. And like my head, I could hear it. I sounded drunk to me, but I just wasn't able to fully talk, you know what I mean? And so I tried to walk out the room, to which they had to quickly grab me and put me down in the chair. And they said, no, we got to wheel you out. And I said, really? And then the nurse looked at me and she said, we had a hard time waking you up. And I was like, is that normal? She said, well, normally patients wake up 5 minutes after surgery. It took us close to 30 minutes to get you up. Like, you did not want to wake up. And I was like, is that a bad thing? And she's like, no, because we talked to your husband, and he said that you probably only had like an hour and a half of sleep. So we knew that you were just exhausted. So you just had a harder time waking up. I was like, well, that's good to know. That's how long it took me to wake up. But we ended up putting me in a wheelchair, and I could barely stay awake in the car. Corey took me home and went to give me Chipotle. And next thing I woke up 3.5 hours later, and then I finally ate my Chipotle. But even then, by the time I got done and wanted to eat my Chipotle, I probably had a quarter of it. At that point, I literally had no appetite, and I had no appetite whatsoever. And my doctor said that was completely normal. They called me that day to ask me how I was feeling, and I told them I was incredibly sore, and they said to expect some bleeding. If I need to expect some bleeding and some soreness. And so I ended up calling out of work the next day because I had a very difficult time. I had a very difficult time sitting down. It was very uncomfortable for me to sit down for a couple days. And I think it's just because of where they did the biopsies at. They definitely did a cold snap or cold snare. So they like did the cold burn, and they did it right in my rectum, which I then spoke to my doctor. I said it was very common for me to have a difficult time sitting down afterwards because of it. So they said it was completely normal. So I ended up calling out of work and just taking the day to fully relax and not doing anything. And that whole weekend, like, I was definitely uncomfortable. They said, like, a lot of the people I talked to who've had colonoscopy said that they were great. They went out afterwards, never felt anything. I was definitely very uncomfortable. I didn't have my first bowel movement until like 3 days after, and I barely had an appetite for about 3 days after. I don't know why, it was very weird. But I'm really glad that I got it done because I had my follow-up yesterday with my doctor. Now, when they went in to do my colonoscopy, they tested out 3 different sections of my colon. They tested my right colon and my left colon for colitis. All came back negative. So I didn't present any diverticulitis. I didn't present IBD. I didn't present ulcer colitis. So they said that was actually really good. However, I did have a medium-sized polyp. Now, at the time when my doctor did my colonoscopy, when he pulled the polyp, he told my husband that he's pretty sure it's a benign polyp, that there's nothing to be worried about, but it is a medium-sized polyp, which is a little concerning to him for the size that it was, because it wasn't like it was classified as a small, it was medium, meaning that was 1 centimeter. So he did say that I'd have to come back in 3 years, but they sent my polyp off for a biopsy, and it finally came back. And when it came back, it did come back as precancerous. So he sat me down yesterday in the office. He said, listen, we did your colonoscopy. He goes, your colon came back, like, he goes, the 2 biopsies for the colitis came back negative, so you have nothing to worry about there. He goes, but your polyp did come back as precancerous. So I said, so what does that mean? He said, if you would have waited till you're 45 years old, like the allotted time that you're supposed to, because they want you to get colonoscopies at 45, he goes, you would 1,000% have colon cancer. I said, what? He goes, you would have had colon cancer had you waited. And I went, are you serious? He goes, yep. He goes, unfortunately, the type of polyp you had, you were at a higher risk for developing more polyps like this. So I do need you to come back in 3 years. I said, okay, does this mean that I'm going to get colon cancer? He's like, no, not necessarily. He goes, as long as you keep up with your colonoscopies and we make sure you keep removing them, he goes, you should honestly be completely fine. He goes, we're seeing more and more and more younger patients coming in, and more patients are coming in with polyps. A lot of them are coming back as benign. Some of them are coming back as cancerous. He goes, however, we were very, very fortunate we were able to catch yours at a very incredibly early stage before it even hit the cancerous mark. It was precancerous and we got it out, so you have nothing to worry about. I said, okay, so like in 3 years when I come back, if I find no polyps, he goes, if you find no polyps in 3 years, he goes, you're still going to be on a 3-year regimen. I said, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, the type of polyp you had, you will be on a 3-year regimen probably for a long time. He goes, not only that, he goes, I don't want you to stress. He goes, but you have what we call a redundant / tortuous or tortuous colon. I was like, what does that mean? He goes, it means that you have an abnormally longer colon with a twist. So I was like, really? He goes, yeah. So he goes, so your colonoscopy was a little more difficult because we don't discover you have a redundant colon until you're actually physically in there or by a CT scan. He goes, we didn't discover that you had a redundant colon until we were in there. So he goes, it just means that you may have a little bit more complications with your GI tract. He goes, it's your twists are right over here, which is where I've been having so much gas pain and so much bloating, where you'd hear that like gas right there. He goes, that is where your big twist is at. I go, is it something that I should be concerned about? He said, no, it's something that you were born with. I kept calling it torturous. He's like, it's not torturous, it's torturous. I don't know. It's a redundant colon. He said that my redundant colon is literally leading up to my issues. He also did diagnose me officially with IBS. He said that the colon that I have is contributing to my bloating, my abdominal pain, and my gas. And it's also contributing to the inconsistent bowel movement because my colon is abnormally longer than normal, and because it has twist, partially it does get blocked with stuff. And I'm trying to be like vague without being so gross here. It does get partially blocked, so that's why sometimes you'll have very inconsistent bowel movements. Sometimes you'll have very like watery poops versus very solid poops. It just really kind of depends. So he goes, I'm gonna go ahead and prescribe you an IBS medication. He also gave me an over-the-counter supplement that I can start taking on a daily basis. He also wants me to start taking fiber intake every single day. My polyps never cause any issues, he said, but by me having GI issues, that is the reason why they were able to discover that I had a precancerous polyp in my system. He literally said, by your GI issues, we were able to discover something. Otherwise, you would have came in too late. And I, at that moment, like started to tear up. And I was like, so for the first time in my life, me having like fucked up stomach issues literally saved me from what could have been. He said, absolutely. So yeah, guys, I have a redundant colon and I have to go back in 3 years, and I have to be on a particular diet for the most part and have to take medication. But at the end of the day, I don't have cancer and I don't have any more polyps. Everything's out and I feel incredible. I really do feel incredible, and it feels so good to have this amazing news be thrown my way. And the reason I wanted to sit down and do a story time is because, like I said, I had so many guys reach out to me and ask me why I went to the doctor, and it's because I just felt like there was something wrong. I just felt like there was something wrong with my bowel movement and that something wasn't right, and there wasn't. I listened to my body, and I know they say that you should go at 45, but I'm telling you guys, if you feel like there's something wrong, go get seen. So I will always be a big advocate for colonoscopies because it literally can save you, and I'm a big advocate for standing up for yourself and getting yourself seen and advocating for yourself, because you just never know. You never know. So if you were scared, just know I was just as scared, and I did it, and I could do it again tomorrow. If they told me how to get one again tomorrow, I would do it in a heartbeat, because I now know what to expect. It's definitely not scary, and it can definitely save your life. So I know the story was kind of all over the place, and I don't know if it really made sense, but I just wanted to tell my story as to why I had to get a colonoscopy and the benefit from it in the long run. And like I said, if you feel like there's something wrong, please go get checked. You just truly never know. And if I can help one person, then this story was so worth it, so worth it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm happy to answer them as best I can. I'm not a specialist, I'm not a doctor. All I know is that I have tummy issues. I have IBS and a tortuous colon, and that's okay. Or redundant colon, whatever you want to call it, that's okay. And it's okay to have tummy issues. It's okay to, you know, talk about bowel movements on the internet, because it's such a normal process, and I don't ever want you to feel alone for having to have issues as well. So yeah, guys, that was my story time. A very long story, but I hope you guys enjoyed my experience of having my first ever colonoscopy. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, let me know down below. I will be happy to answer them as best as possible, especially when it comes to the soup prep. I would do it again in a heartbeat. It's not fun, but it's very manageable, and I'm glad I did that over anything else, because it was just the least amount of liquids that I had to consume. And if you have questions about the procedures or anything after, like I said, I'm happy to answer them as best I can. But with that said, guys, that is it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed today's video, please make sure you guys give this video a cheeky thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you guys have not already. So I do post 3 to 4 videos every single week. Make sure you guys head over to my other channels, are for life. You guys get to see my cool, wonderful adventures, my amazing husband Corey, and as always, the biggest thank you goes to these beautiful, wonderful paid members you guys see right here. Thank you guys so much for everything, and to my subscribers and viewers, thank you guys so much for being here. Whether you guys like this video, you guys thumbs down this video, you guys subscribed, you guys did not subscribe, either way, thank you guys so much for being here. I love and appreciate each and every single one of you. So with that said, guys, I love you, and I'll see you guys in the very next video.